Rugby Championship 2021, it's All Blacks, it's Springboks, it's the 100th match between these two teams, people. Should be a pretty magnificent event. We're going to go through the teams, the stats, the predictions, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. In terms of the wider Rugby Championship, the All Blacks are sitting pretty with 4 from 4 on 20 points. The Springboks can technically catch the All Blacks if they get 2 bonus point wins over the men in black and don't let the All Blacks get any kind of bonus point in return. So it's a pretty tough ask. The All Blacks have all but wrapped up the Rugby Championship, assuming they can get any kind of point over the next 2 games. But yeah, the South Africans will certainly be looking to bounce back because they've dropped their last 2 against the Aussies, although they are still the second place team in the competition, 1 point above the Aussies. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It's in Townsville. It's like 5 o'clock local time, so the sun should still be shining pretty brightly. That's like 7 o'clock over here in New Zealand. It'll be a morning game over in South Africa. There's been a lot of talk in the build-up as to just how much this means, and the players are essentially trying to play it down as if like it's just another game. They might write books about, Vermeulen said they might write books about, you know, what happened in the 100th game, but for these guys, essentially it's a job to do, and it's another test between these two sides. In terms of the lineups, the All Blacks are the home team for this game, so we'll go with them first. I know it's a neutral venue, but Sansa are still doing the home and away thing. Moody, Taylor, and Laulala is a bit of a mixed front row. You got Moody, who started last week. You've got Taylor, who was on the bench last week, and Laulala, who's just come back into the side. So it's a little bit disjointed, but I guess that's what Ian Foster thinks is his best team. Brody, Retallick, and Scott Barrett. It's an all-changed second row. Barrett up from the bench. Retallick back into the 23. He didn't play last week. Tuipulotu drops to the bench. Va'i is out of the 23. And Akira Ioane, Ardie, Savea, who was captain, and Luke Jacobson make out the back row. So once again, you got a guy who started last week in Savea, a guy who was on the bench last week in Jacobson, and a guy who wasn't in the 23 in Akira. So yeah, it's all a bit of a few pieces coming together. Perenara and Barrett, that's a familiar combo at 9-10. Played a lot of games together at the Hurricanes and with the All Blacks, so they should have pretty good chemistry together. You would imagine Barrett replaces D-Mac in that number 10 jersey. Perenara continues on. Havili is back at 12. In for Tupaea, who drops to the bench. Ioane is still at 13. And it's the same back 3 as last week with Bridge, Jordan, and Geordie Barrett. The bench is made up of Taukei'aho, Tuungafasi, Tui'nukuafe, Tuipulotu. That's 4 Ts. Blackadder, Weber, D-Mac, and another T in Tupaea. So, yeah, Weber's the only guy, along with Tui'nukuafe, who come into the 23 from outside last week. All the other guys pretty much started and are now dropping to the bench, except for Tuungafasi, who still continues to ride the pine. So Christie's out and Bauer out from guys who played last week. For the Springboks, it's a wee bit more stable. Slightly fewer in the number of changes they've made. The same front row, Nyakani, Mbonambi, and Malherba. Etzebeth and Diaka are the second row, so the only change there is Diaka comes in for Ori, who drops out of the 23. Kolisi, who is captain. Kwaka Smith is in at number 7, and Vermeulen is there at 8. So Mostert drops to the bench. Remember, he's been playing on the blind side and then shifting into lock the last kind of couple of rounds, but he is getting a wee bit of a break. Jacques Nienaber kind of mentioned that he's played pretty much every minute, so he needs to have a little rest, and they're looking forward to the energy that Kwaka Smith is going to bring. But otherwise, apart from those two, it's steady as she goes. And the backs are the same to Klerk, Pollard, Allende, Mapimpi, Nkosi, and Roux. It's pretty much the same team that played in the 2019 Rugby World Cup, except the fact that Nkosi starts ahead of Colby, which happened at the Rugby World Cup as well when Colby was injured. So Colby is still not quite fit and available for this one. The bench is Marks, Kitsoff, and Cox, so that's the same. Mostert, as I mentioned, who drops down, Van Staden. But interestingly, they've gone 5 forwards and 3 backs instead of the 6-2 split, which they have been doing in recent times. So you got Herschel Yankees, Elton Yankees, who I guess replaces the additional loose forward, which in this case is probably Jasper Wiese. He drops out of the 23, and Frans Steyn is in for Damian Willemse. So a lot of experience in the likes of Elton and Frans. Frans has got that big old boot on him, so it may be that they're looking for a bit of experience to add in, or maybe a big old boot towards the end of the game. You never know. So it is going to be interesting. Like some of the individual battles you're kind of looking forward to seeing. Like Barrett Bowden played fullback against the Springboks the last time they met in 2019. He is now at 10 with Mo'unga not being available. But his brother Geordie's been doing a phenomenal job. Pollard is under a wee bit of pressure, I think. Been a little bit criticised for his goal kicking a fortnight ago, but he got it a wee bit more correct last week. But it was kind of his tackling that let him down. He at least missed one or two. One that directly led to a try, and it's the kind of one-on-one tackling that you can't be missing. Havili is going to be an interesting one at 12 because traditionally his defensive numbers have not been great, and he's got a pretty big old unit. Damian Allende coming up against them. But if you look at the time when Havili played against Karevi, which was only a few weeks ago, his tackling numbers were fine. So fingers crossed from an All Blacks point of view, he'll be kind of steady as she goes. From a Springboks point of view, you'll be looking to kind of open up a bit of space there because Havili and Ioane in the midfield, not necessarily known as the kind of two best defenders in the midfield, you'd have to say. Also, Lukhanyo and Rico Ioane, man. Like, you got one of the world's best defensive midfielders in who reads the game so well, and just absolute lightning in Rico, who has been finding space like nobody's business in this Rugby Championship. So, yeah, lots to like about the lineups. Statistically, it's an interesting one because the last time they met in that 2019 World Cup, a lot was made of the scrummaging, but a big point I made was that the South African defence that day was poor. They missed like 35 tackles, which is absolutely uncharacteristic. Springboks at that time were not missing tackles for anybody. Not really. And then that one game was a real blip. They missed 35 tackles, tackled at 76%. Since then, if you're looking at the games this year, including the British and Irish Lions tour, like the Springboks are averaging like 87%. This is what I'm talking about. Their tackling percentage is usually really high, defensively very solid. But, and I kind of alluded to it earlier with Pollard, in that last game against Australia, 72.5. So it was a bit of a letdown last week, but maybe in that point of view, you're looking at they got that blip out of their way last week, so lightning shouldn't strike twice with that Springbok defence. But it's certainly kind of a question mark. It's something that you see maybe once a year that they have a bad defensive performance and they miss a few tackles. So yeah, 76% in the World Cup, 72.5 last week. They will certainly be looking to up that part of their game. The All Blacks, in comparison for the Rugby Championship, are tackling at 88%, so equally very defensively solid. And we saw that last week when the Pumas were battering on the door for a long period. The All Blacks never really looked like cracking. Clean breaks, man, the All Blacks have been generating a lot. They're averaging 13 a game in the Rugby Championship. That's compared to 1.5 for the Springboks. So look for the All Blacks guys to try and get into a lot of space. Some of it was gifted for them against Australia. I mean, you can argue the semantics of whether it's gifted or whether that's the All Blacks converting on good turnover ball, but certainly too easy. Opportunities that you wouldn't want to be giving the All Blacks at times have been given to this Rugby Championship, and they've capitalised. 13 clean breaks a game is huge. 1.5 for the Springboks. Not a heck of a lot. If you look defensively, though, clean breaks conceded, the All Blacks concede more than the Boks, but it's only 7-5. So it's a more marginal difference than the amount of clean breaks they're able to generate. Remember, clean breaks are some of the kind of main times when you're actually able to generate 5-pointers or potential 7-pointers. Run meters per carry, the Springboks are at 3.8, which is kind of close to that magic number of 4 where you're really getting over the advantage line. The All Blacks are at 6, so easily getting over the advantage line helps if you're getting so many clean breaks. Kicks from hand, a lot is made of the Springbok kicking game. They're at 30 kicks a game on average in the Rugby Championship. The All Blacks are at 22, so it's a significant number more, and the All Blacks, I think, have been kicking not just for territory, but they've been often kicking to put guys into space. So it will be interesting to see if they kind of look to that to maybe beat that Springboks defensive line, and how much kicking we see from Faf to Klerk, and how well the All Blacks guys handle it under the high ball. Geordie Barrett is pretty bloody secure, and Will Jordan is another fullback. George Bridge, one of the best things about him is he's pretty safe. So I would have thought that's a pretty safe All Blacks back three, but we'll see what the Springboks do in terms of their tactics. Maul time will be a big question. The Springboks are averaging 9 mauls a game at least. The All Blacks at 5, so almost half, or just over half. The Wallabies struggled when they failed to defuse the Springboks maul in that first game. They conceded tries, 3 of them. Second week they got it right, and then they didn't concede any via the maul. So yeah, that'll be, obviously the All Blacks would have seen that as well. But how much the Boks go to the maul, and how often they actually drive and how often they spin it will be interesting to see, because I feel like if you can keep the defenders guessing, then you're more likely to have success, right? If you know they're going to drive it, then it seems like it's a pretty easy one to kind of counter. But if you kind of keep it a bit of a mixed bag, yeah, then see what happens. But the All Blacks, again, they're more quite capable of generating try-scoring opportunities as well. The last 5 games, it's 3 victories to the All Blacks, 1 victory to the Springboks, and the 1 draw. I think 4 of those games were under Rassie, 1 of them was under Alistair Coetzee, but the margin during those 5 games have all been pretty tight, averaging 26-24 to the All Blacks. So it's traditionally been pretty tight affairs in the last 5 games between these sides. That being said, in terms of the predictions, the Rugby Forecast algorithm is predicting it to be pretty lopsided. The All Blacks by 14. The bookies over here in New Zealand, and the bookies are generally pretty standard with a slight variation between them, by 12. They've got the All Blacks as 12-point favourites, so kind of flies in the face of the fact that generally in recent years things have been pretty tight. I don't know, it's an interesting one. People seem pretty torn. There's some people kind of saying the All Blacks are in red hot form, the Springboks are struggling, the Springboks get better look out because they're going to get a hiding. And people like my dad who were saying, man, the Springboks are pretty peed off to lose 2 games in a row, and they'll be looking to take that out on someone, so the All Blacks better look out. So yeah, I don't know, folks. What do you guys reckon? I'm hoping it's a pretty good game, a nice tight clash for us. Hopefully it'll be kind of a traditional Springboks All Blacks battle. It's a great rugby rivalry. It's good to see it back in action after a couple of years off. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. How do you think this one is going to go? Are you back in the number 1 side, the All Blacks, who have just taken that spot from the Springboks, or can you see the Springboks taking that spot immediately back from the All Blacks with a win? They could certainly use one after 2 losses, but yeah, All Blacks are not going to be an easy team to beat. That is for sure. They are in great form. It's going to be fun, guys. You guys let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you again soon. See you later.